Okay, so now I want to show you the actual How Do We Vote website and walk through what I consider to be the three major use cases of it, or the three things that make it the most valuable. So I'm going to open it here in Safari. In the office, we'll probably be using Internet Explorer, but that's fine. It will work in either. So the website is howdowevote.com. It's spelled just like it sounds, but without the apostrophe. So I'm going to go ahead and go there. And the first thing you'll notice is that I'm taken to this login screen. And so regardless from where you try to access the website from, whether it be typing in the URL or someone sends you an email with a link in it, it will ask you to log in. This is a security feature just so that no one who doesn't have an account can access any of the information. So I'm going to log in here with just an account we made just for testing purposes. And when I log in, it's going to take me to the home page. And there are sort of two things to note on the home page. The first are these three icons across the top: search, compare, and update. And I think that the majority of times that you visit the site, you'll be using one of those icons to get to where you want to be. The other thing to notice is this table of roll call votes. This will always be updated with the 5 most recent roll call votes that the congressman has taken. So if you're looking just for, you need to grab some information about the last vote the congressman just took, you can do it here easily. But now I want to talk about the three sort of main use cases. The first relates to something that happened in the office a couple weeks ago. I was talking to Mackenzie, and she was saying she was trying to find the vote recommendation about an amendment that had to do with ICBM silos. And she said, I know this amendment came up last year, but I'm not sure exactly what day. And with the old system of vote recs where we had them in Word documents done by the day, you needed to know the day in order to be able to find the vote recommendation. So I want to show how this system makes that much easier. So we want to find that amendment and the vote recommendation about the thing that had to do with silos. So I'm going to go here and click on the search icon. And we're taken to the search page. And so you see there's sort of two blocks. There's the enter any block and there's this include members block. And I'm going to ignore this include members block for now and focus just on the enter any block. First thing to note is that there's sort of 5 different modifiers you can have here, but you can combine them in sort of any way you'd like. You don't just need to stick with one, and I'm going to show that now. So Mackenzie knew that this had to do with silos. That was sort of the keyword. And she knew the vote was last year, so I'm going to say put just the year as 2013. I'll leave the month and day as any. So I'm going to go ahead and click submit. And what this will do is it will look through all the votes from 2013 and look for the keyword silos. So we see here, this is nice actually. There's only one vote that had silos in it. It's an amendment. We can see it's from 6/13 of last year, and that's great. So I'm going to go ahead and now click on the roll call number, which is 223 here. And this opens up the single roll call view. So for every roll call vote that we've taken, there's a page that looks just like this that has all of the information that we have about it. So it begins at the top with the vote information. Because this is an amendment, the next one is amendment information. Otherwise, it would just be bill information. You can see below that we have the vote recommendation. Below that, we have the vote results. So how did the congressman vote? Sort of the vote breakdown by party. And then below that, we have this vote analysis, party line being did the majority of each party disagree, and Delaney break, meaning did Congressman Delaney vote differently than the majority of Democrats. So that's how that sort of first use case scenario, which is I'm looking for a single roll call vote, I'm looking for a specific piece of information from that roll call vote, and I only know a keyword, or I know say the year and the month and the issue, or some combination of facts, but I can't find it. The search feature allows you to put those in, and then you can go ahead and click on the roll call number. You get this view, and you can see all the things that we know about this. So in this example, I think she was looking for the vote recommendation. So we can scroll down, and we see vote recommendation, and vote rec is no, and we see the reasoning below it. So that's the first use case. The second use case also involves search, and this is something that I had been talking to Ben about. And he said it would be really helpful for me to be able to quickly generate a list of all of the education votes we've taken, and then have a convenient way of being able to print those out in a way that for each vote I can see all the information, and I can take it with me, say, to a meeting or to a hearing or something like that. So I'm going to click back here on the search button on the side, and that will take me back to the search page. So now for the issue code, I'm just going to put the issue code in as education. I'm going to leave everything else blank and click submit. So what this will do is it will search through all the votes that have been tagged with the issue code of education. And we look here, they show them in chronological order. So we start roll call number 252 of this year. If I scroll down, we can go all the way back to roll call vote 49 of last year. So this is all the education votes we've taken. And so if you wanted to print out all of the roll call votes, it would be a pain to have to individually click on roll call vote 252 and print that, and then 245 and print that. Excuse me. So that's what this print all feature is for. And if I click that print all button, we're taken to a page where it actually has now loaded all of the votes. So if I were to keep scrolling, I would go through all the votes that have been tagged with education. But that's not really a helpful layout. But what this page is great for is being able to print them easily. So if I just go ahead and hit print on this page, the website's smart enough that it knows, okay, the menu on the left-hand side is not helpful. So it cuts that out from the print. So if I go ahead and make this two-sided, now what we get is 84 pages. That's because we've taken 84 votes. So you have one page per vote, and each page is the front and a little bit of the back, and that has all the information that we have. So now in just a couple clicks, you're able to say, I want all the education votes we've ever taken, and you can print out a report that has, for each vote, a single sheet of paper that has all the information about it. The third use case I want to talk about involves comparison. And so I'm going to go back to the home page and click on the little compare button. Alternatively, there's a compare link on the left-hand side, but I'm going to click compare. So you can compare the congressman's voting records to either an individual member or to a group of members. So for instance, I've already created a group here for the Maryland delegation, but you could make as many custom groups as you want. So you can make, a Blue Dog Democrats group and see, how does Congressman Delaney vote relative to them, if they even exist anymore. So I'm going to go to just for the single member for now. And if I go ahead and click this, I get a list here of all the members of Congress. And this will update itself as the midterms come. So when some members lose and they're new members, this will update itself to have the most recent member list. But you can also search. So I'm going to search for Congressman Van Hollen, and I'm going to go ahead and click that. And I'm going to go ahead and click submit. And so what this does now is it pulls up Congressman Delaney's voting history and Congressman Van Hollen's voting history. And at the top here, I get an overview. So they've both voted on 972 votes, and they've agreed 91.56% of the time. So that's helpful in the sort of the overview sense, but you might also want to get more detail. You want to drive down to specific roll call votes. If we look here, we can see the crime section, and you can see they've taken 11 votes. They've agreed on 10 of them. But you might say, well, I want to now see actually what those votes are. So if you notice on the left, for the issue areas, these are all links. And so I'm going to go ahead and click the crime link. And that's going to open a page here that is similar to the search results in that these are going to be all the crime votes that the congressmen have taken together. And you can see now there's two additional columns on the right, one being Delaney vote and one being Van Hollen vote. So you can see from this view sort of how the two have voted. So if this is enough, that's great. You can scroll down and you can see, okay, well, they disagreed on this roll call vote 251 here. Well, you could click on that to get more information, and that's great. But similar to the last example, you might say, well, I want all of these, and I would like one sheet of paper for each of these votes that has all the information about the bills and also has their votes on it. So if you go ahead and click print all now, it knows that you've just been comparing Congressman Delaney to Congressman Van Hollen. So it'll have all the same information, but it will include now in the vote results, underneath Delaney vote, you now see Van Hollen vote. So again, the same thing, I could go ahead and click print here, and it would print one sheet for each vote. So here, 22 pages because there have been 22 votes. But now included in this information is going to be how did Congressman Van Hollen vote. So you could print out so here I'll be printing out all the crime bills, and then I'll have Congressman Van Hollen's vote on there also. So that's just an example of how you can, in addition to just finding a block of votes and figuring out information, you can figure out how Congressman Delaney voted on those relative to somebody else. The other thing I'll show you with comparisons is the ability to compare to a group. So it might be helpful to compare Congressman Delaney to Congressman Van Hollen, say, but it also might be more interesting to say, well, I want to compare him to the rest of the Maryland delegation, for example. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select the Maryland delegation here, and I'm going to click submit. And so this will do the same thing. It will look through the Maryland delegation, and for each vote, it will say, did a majority of them vote a certain way? And if it did, that's the vote it will register. And if not, it will say that there was no consensus on the Maryland delegation, for example. So we look here, and now we see Delaney and the Maryland delegation agreed about 92% at the time. Again, you can navigate down by issue area. I'll pick a different one. Here we see one on foreign affairs. They've agreed 93.75% of the time. I could click on foreign affairs. It will do the same thing. It will load up a page where you can see all the foreign affairs votes, and it will compare Delaney's vote to the Maryland delegation's vote. Again, the print all thing would work just as you would expect. The Maryland delegation vote would appear on the page as you printed it. So that's sort of the three major use cases for the staff, I would think. There's also, I want to talk about this update feature, and that's sort of how the staff information gets added in. And so this system is smart in that it pulls from the clerk's website the most recent vote information. And so say I'm going to click on roll call vote 368 here. It's the most recent vote that we've taken. So I'm going to click that. And you'll see it can pull in the bill number and the bill title and the date and what kind of a vote it was on. It can pull in the congressman's vote, what was the result, how did the Democrats and Republicans vote, was it a party line vote, did they break? But what it can't get is the bill description, because that's something that the staff writes. The issue codes, that's something that we've been assigning. The vote rec, again, staff written, and the reasoning, staff written. So the system can only automatically pull in certain information. So that's why there's this update tab along the side. And so what that does is this pulls in all the votes that, as it says on the top, that need information, that don't have a vote recommendation, that don't have a bill description, and things like that. And so for each one, you get a little, you get the roll call number, you get the bill number, the title, and what kind of vote it is, and then this edit button. So I'm going to go ahead and just click this edit button. And so here's this roll call number 368, and now we see this staff information thing appears. So there's space for me to type in a bill description, type in a vote recommendation, type in a reasoning, assign it issue codes, and click submit. I'm not sure what this is actually about, so I'm not going to enter any of these. But if I did enter in this information and go back to this update tab, the number before would say 65, and now it would say 64, and that sort of the information I just entered would go into the database. It would now be searchable and all that stuff. So that update tab is there, so it will pull in the most recent votes and say, okay, there's X number of votes that are waiting for a vote recommendation or a custom staff description or something like that. So that's what that update tab is for. So that's just a quick overview of sort of what is the How Do We Vote system generally, what does it do, and sort of how can it be helpful on a daily basis. So I think sort of the questions that I was thinking about as I was creating this are, how do we gather the data? How are we allowed to manipulate the data, and how are we allowed to export the data? And so I think fundamentally the answer to question one, how do we gather it, is this system is good in that it gathers it automatically, everything it can. It does it accurately because it pulls it directly from the clerk's website. For the question of how do we manipulate the data, this is really great because it's so search focused. So regardless of what you know, you don't need to know a ton about the bill. You could know just simply an issue area or the year or the month that it was voted on, and you can drill down and find the vote you're looking for. In addition, in terms of manipulating data, it's easy to analyze so that you can simply compare the congressman to other congressmen or to a group of congressmen. And to that third question of how can we export the data, that's what I think is great about the print thing and the print all feature. It allows you to easily print just what you want about each bill and do it with a few number of clicks. That's not to say, obviously, that I think this is done in any regard. This is just sort of my first thought of what might be helpful and sort of what features can I think of. Obviously, you guys are the ones who use this, and you know what is helpful to you. So, say one thing I thought about was maybe would it be helpful to have the ability to, from the individual roll call page, quickly create an email that had all of that information in it? I'm not sure. That may or may not be. So I'm certainly open. This is really just like 1.0. I look forward to working with you guys to create more functions, to create more features, and to create something that's really helpful for you guys. Because at the end of the day, the point of this is to simplify your life, to make looking for bills, for looking for past reasoning, for being able to compare the congressman to other people, is to make that simpler. And so this is really just round one, and I look forward to being able to make it better in the future. So I hope it's something that you find useful, and I really enjoyed getting to work on it.